Time to dive into what we're calling salary cap superlatives. Today, diving into some of the most and least expensive offenses in the NFL. Michael, all of these numbers coming via over the cap, but are some of these teams in their offenses overpaid or underrated? I think this will be a fun comparison, especially considering the offense that is the most expensive going into 2023 is the Cleveland Browns, $151.7 million invested into that offense. And if offense wins championships, the Browns are spending it in the right place. But what do you think of the number? Obviously, we know a good chunk of that is for their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, but they've invested a lot up front in that offense.
Well, I mean, it's not only Deshaun Watson, right? I mean, they've got money spread on every single level of their offense, right? They paid offensive linemen. They've got, they drafted Jarek Willis in the first round. Jake Conklin they signed. They re-signed Wyatt Teller to a huge contract. Joel Patano, they re-signed him to a huge contract. So every one of their offensive linemen, even Posick, the kid that they got from Seattle, who was a second-round pick, kind of had never really played well until he got with Billy O'Brien. And then Njoku, one of the top-paid tight ends. Nick Chubb, one of the top-paid running backs. I mean,
I was going to say, they paid Nick Chubb, and Amari Cooper's cap hit is actually higher than Deshaun Watson's this year, 23.8.
Yeah, they traded. Look, Stormy, they traded for Amari Cooper and didn't redo his contract. Yeah. Nobody wanted that deal except for the Browns. So, look, this is who they want to be. And if they don't score more than 24 points a game with this amount of money put into it, it could be a huge, huge disappointment. I mean, because you always say, well, why aren't we being successful? Okay, well, it can't be because you're not paying players. It can't be because you're too young. It means that you've overpaid somebody. The worst thing to do in football is to be like, I've had this happen to us, is be a bad team and have no cap room, right? 2 years ago, the Giants were a horrible team with no cap room. Well, what you don't want to be is a high-priced offense with no ability to score points.
Right. That said, I know that you are high on the Browns, though, and what they could do this year with Deshaun Watson, having his feet wet now, having this entire training camp starting from game one of the season. Their win total is set at 9.5, and you like them potentially to win that division even.
Yeah, I think, there's twofold, right? Either me and the Browns have misevaluated their offensive skill set, right? Or the market's right. I mean, there's no excuses for Cleveland. There's no excuses. They have none. I mean, they even put money in the defense. They've got money on Myles Garrett. They signed Davlin Thompson. They signed Zadarius Smith. They've got first-round picks in their secondary. They re-signed Denzel Ward. I mean, there's no excuses for Cleveland this year. Either they are or they're not.
Yeah, Myles Garrett actually the most significant cap hit to the team this year in Cleveland. Cleveland, $14 million ahead of the second highest paid offense, which is the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're coming off of a Super Bowl win, so you anticipate that has been paid certainly well. The Lions were the most expensive team a season ago. They sit third on the list this year in 2022, poured a ton of resources into their offense, gave the contract extension to Jared Goff. But it paid off, right? Because you see top five offense in the league last year in yardage and points per game.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're expensive because they paid Goff. They have a lot of first-round picks in their offensive line. That makes it expensive. Decker, Ragnow, and Sewell. So you've got that. Plus, they had, now this year they bring in David Montgomery. They paid him. They drafted Sam Laporte in the second round. Mm-hmm. That cost you a little bit of money. I mean, they haven't even paid Amon-Ra St. Brown yet. They haven't paid him yet. They're going to have to pay him, right?
Correct.
They're going to have to pay him. So it's interesting how expensive this Lions offense is when their best receiver hasn't gotten paid yet.
And you mentioned that offensive line. They actually have the highest percentage of their cap invested in the O-line than any other team in football this year.
Which they have to, because Jared Goff needs protection. I mean, he needs to feel secure. And look, I'll never argue with putting your money into the offensive line. I mean, Atlanta's done the same thing. Now, they don't have money in quarterback, but they've done the same thing with their offensive line.
The one that stood out here, and so the final two in this top five of money spent on offense, the Raiders and the Broncos, and I think the Raiders are the big one that stands out here. All other teams that are on this top five have win totals of over 8.5, higher expectations for production, but the Raiders, their win total of 6.5, and they've spent a lot of money on their guys.
Well, they got the best receiver, one of the best receivers in football. They signed Jacoby Myers. They paid Hunter Renfrow. I mean, their receiving room, they pass out Rolexes there. And they re-signed, one of the few picks that worked out for John Gruden was Colton Miller, and they re-signed him to a huge contract. So, and their quarterback, even though he's not expensive, he still eats up a lot of the cap. And then they've got Josh Jacobs. So they've got star power. I mean, they should be able to, and they did move the ball last year. They struggled at times, but they should be able to move the football. I mean, when you've got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, a second-round pick in Michael Mayer, who they think is going to be really good, I mean, they got a chance to move the ball if Garoppolo plays to the level that he played last season. And
Josh Jacobs gets out there on the field. They certainly need that running back position.
I'm counting on that. Aren't you, Stormy?
I am.
I mean, he's not going to – I mean, I would be surprised if they didn't try to work something out here. I really would be.
For as much talent as they have on that offense, it is interesting that they don't have higher expectations. 3 of these top 5 teams also all in the AFC West, which just goes to show trying to keep pace with Patrick Mahomes and that defending Super Bowl championship.
I find Denver being fast. I mean, the money in Denver and the Raiders are a little bit they have receiver money tied up. Obviously, Wilson's really expensive too. And then they paid a lot of money in their offensive line. But I don't think of Denver as, oh, my gosh. I mean, Cortland Sutton's a good player. I mean, I think Jerry Jeudy's a good player, but I'm not sure that that's going to create, oh, wow, that's not Devontae Adams good, right?
Right. Well, they have a lot of what's that, like we call it the on-paper talent. Like they should be this, they should be that, but we just haven't necessarily seen it yet. And so the Broncos are certainly hoping that investment will pay off and that this is going to be the year that'll turn around under Sean Payton. Let's take a look at the 5 cheapest offenses in the NFL this year, Michael. The Patriots, the Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Carolina Panthers, and Green Bay Packers. When you look at some of these offenses, are you thinking any of them maybe are getting a little bit of a bargain for what they could do this year?
Well, I mean, look, the one thing that jumps out when you look at this, what's the commonality? Other than the Rams, nobody's paying their quarterback, right? Yep. Even Bryce Young is not high price. Jordan Love's not high price in relative terms. So they're not paying their quarterback. And then, the Rams, the only guy they are paying, I think $59 million of the $100 million in the Rams on offense goes to 2 players, right? It goes to Cooper Kupp and it goes to Matthew Stafford. And then they have Haverstein in there that they paid. I mean, that's really, to me, everybody else is a minimum contract at the Rams. The Bucs, once again, the Bucs are good on defense. They put a lot of resources in their defense, and they broke up their offensive line that didn't play well last year. Donovan Smith, they sent him back, and he was a high-priced guy. Shaq Mason, they sent him back, and he was a high-priced guy. Leonard Fournette was a high-priced guy. They sent him back. So they've kind of trying to revamp this. And look, the Packers, they've always gone young, and now they're young at quarterback as well.
Mm-hmm. The one I think that could exceed expectations, and we've talked a lot about this Carolina Panthers team, but I do think that they have more weapons offensively than they're getting credit for because so many people doubt the size and ability of a guy like Bryce Young to play at the NFL level, especially his rookie season. But you have Miles Sanders, who you bring in at running back from the Eagles, Adam Thielen to be a veteran in that wide receiver room alongside DJ Chark and Terrence Marshall. I love Hayden Hurst at tight end. Up front, you think they should at least get better. I know Ike Ekwonu wasn't exactly what they were hoping him to be up front a season ago, but he'll be great. I have a lot of confidence in this offense.
Yeah, and you left out Chenault, who I think might be their best receiver. I think he is really good to get when the ball's in his hands. He's got Deebo Samuel-like talent. He really does. And Tommy Tremble, the tight end from Notre Dame, if he ever emerges to be what he's capable of as a blocker to go along with Hurst, I agree with you, Stormy. This is a team that should be much better as they move forward with their offense. I mean, they should improve. They got veterans and they've got young players.
Yeah, they lost DJ Moore, obviously, to the Bears in that trade to take the number 1 overall pick, but I think it was like what they have in that room is more than enough for them to have success on that side of the ball. So if I'm having to pick one of these teams that's at a discount that you're going to get some solid offensive play from, I think that it might be the Carolina Panthers. So let's look at those top 5 spending defenses. The Los Angeles Chargers, the most expensive at $127.8 million, but Khalil Mack, who had the big $141 million contract, $23.5 million average annual value right now, has taken up a significant chunk of that, along with the Bills, the Steelers, 49ers, and Giants. And the Giants are the one that really leaped off the page here for me, Michael, considering this is a team that a year ago, 25th in the league in defense overall, allowed 358.3 yards per game. Run defense particularly bad. They cycled through linebackers, not for injuries, but just for production, like it was nobody's business.
Yeah, I mean, look, that they're paying Leonard Williams a huge salary. They paid Dexter Lawrence, who deserved it. He was really good. Leonard Williams wasn't good last year. They got Thibodeau, a first-round pick on there. They've got Adoree Jackson, who they paid. And so they've put some money into this defense. Now, they've got to reap the benefits. Linebacker, they were terrible last season. Can they improve this year? I don't know. The one other team that strikes me, too, you can't get any worse than the Chargers, Stormy.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chargers were as bad as you could get defensively. And yet when you see those numbers, you say, like, look, they're paying Joey Bosa. They're paying Khalil Mack, right? They're paying Derwin James. Those three players eat up most of that money. Right? They eat up most of the money. I mean, it isn't the Morgan Foxes of the world or the Michael Davises that are hurting them. It's those guys, and they've got to play to a high level. They've got to play above it. I don't know if Khalil Mack can play at age over 30. Can Joey Bosa stay healthy? I mean, when you watch this team defensively, they could never stop the run. I mean, they couldn't stop the run to save their life. So how are they, and you got to be sitting there saying, how are we, I know they made the playoffs, but how are we going to stop the run? And we're paying all these guys this money.
Yeah, and this was a season ago. Overall defense, 22.6 points per game allowed for the Chargers, bottom 11 in the league. And when you're paying that kind of money, you need better production, especially given that you have the talent that you have on the offensive side of the ball. Give them a little bit of help, right? Like, give Justin Herbert help.
If you were Dean Spanos and you had the highest paid defense in all of football and your head coach was a defensive coach, wouldn't you be scratching your head?
You think?
Wouldn't you be saying, wait a minute, hold on here now. Let me understand this. We got a defensive head coach who's supposed to be a guru. I'm paying the defense the most money of any NFL team, and yet my defense is 21st in points allowed. We were 32nd in yards per attempt rushing against us. I mean, like, what's wrong? One thing we know, it's either players, coaches, or scheme. When you're playing the players, you're saying they're not the issue.
For this, and that's why Brandon Staley's on the chopping block, right? This year is going to be
he should have got chopped after, when he played Mike Williams in the Denver game. When he had no business playing him.
That was,
he plays him in that. And then he, not only does he do that, then he blows the lead at the next week, and he still keeps his job.
I'm still surprised. Like, if I'm Sean Payton, I would have wanted to hold out and wait for Brandon Staley to be let go so that I could be the head coach of the Chargers and have those toys to play with. But, he chose Denver. We'll see how things play out this season with the Broncos. But also, and I think that for the 49ers, clearly money well spent with the efficiency that they have played with. The Steelers, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think top 10 defense again last year in points allowed. Run defense was good. Let's flip the page to the cheapest defenses, though.
Well, before we go there, though, let's be clear. Your 49ers are going to become the most expensive defense in the NFL. When that Nick Bosa contract gets put in here, that'll change everything.
But again, Michael, I will second what I just said. They get their money's worth. Yeah, money well spent.
It is well spent. Now, I'm not arguing that at all. People would say, well, the Niners are only at 116. Well, that doesn't include – their 116 is a hell of a lot different than the Giants' 115.
Correct. Fred Warner, you look at what you have with Bosa, with Javon Hargrave you bring in. They are a defense that has staple players and names that even casual fans know. I love what they did. The Eagles, meanwhile, also had one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. This year, they are one of the top 5 cheapest defenses going into 2023, along with the Saints, Lions, Cardinals, and Rams. And some of those the Eagles' defense is not created equal to the Lions' defense, to say the least.
No, but the Eagles have a couple guys. I mean, they got Fletcher Cox in it, but they're basically Georgia's defense. They paid a few guys, but they got a lot of young players on that defensive front. They got Sweat, who they're going to have to play. They've got, Jordan Davis. They got Milton Williams. They've got, they brought Burnett back. They've got a lot of young players that eventually will have to come through and see if they can. But they paid their quarterback, and they're getting their money's worth out of the defense, that's for sure. We'll see if they hold up. I mean, one of the concerns is, can Slay and Bradbury come back and have the same year if that pass rush, which got 60 of the 70 sacks, doesn't demonstrate the same level?
Anybody else? Anything else when you look at those bottom five defense? I mean, in terms of prices, defenses that stands out to you one way or another.
I was surprised the Saints are so cheap, but I don't know. The Saints go through and change a lot. They get some young players in there. They've lost some really good players. Hendrickson was on that team that went to Cincinnati. The Rams have one player on defense. You can't name anybody else, right? I mean,
it's all for Aaron Donald, baby.
Yeah, they signed John Johnson back because they had to, and he was looking for work. The Cardinals, the same thing. I mean, once they lose J.J. Watt and they lost Zach Allen, I mean, where are they going? I mean, Budda Baker's their best player, and he's getting paid, and he wants more money.
Aaron Donald, 31.7 average annual value.
Think about that, Stormy. He's got 31.7. That means the rest of the cap is about 32. The rest of the players on defense eat up $32 million. And you wonder why you can't name them?
That's bonkers. Maybe the Lions, by the way, we mentioned the Lions as one of the highest spending offenses, and hey, they produce, give them credit. Maybe spend a little bit more on the defense, though. That's where they need the most help. This year should be improved, to your point. We'll see how things ultimately shake out.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.